Okay, what I'm going to do is to play a simul. Where did the other game go? Anyway, let's just seek some games. Okay, I'm gonna play up to 4 or 5 games. And I'm white again here. Let's play e4 again. Against this opponent we get d4, d5, d4, knight f6, takes on c4. The queen's gambit accepted. Gonna play knight to f3. Many ways to play it. Gonna go with knight f3. Here he plays e6. Just gonna play knight c3. I'm improvising a bit. I usually play knight f3, but I want to test some new lines. Okay, bishop g4. I think there's nothing wrong with just e3 and bishop takes c4. Most likely he's going to play an old line here. He just goes knight f6, e6, etc. Seems a bit risky to hold on to a pawn like this, but for instance I can play b3. And if he takes here, then I take with check. Oh, it does have c6, bishop c4. We'll just put the pawn here. Looks weird. Let's see. b3 takes. I can also take with a queen on b3 potentially. But you know, even if I have to sacrifice a pawn, I don't think it's very good for him. I'll try e3 here. Thought, okay, he castles and knight e2. We've got a third game, and I'm white once again. Let's try e4 in that game. Okay, queen d5. This is all a bit weird. I can always regain the pawn by taking and going queen a4 check. I'm tempted to go knight c3. Tempted to do a lot of things here. Okay, this is probably the simplest, but I may have a better option. Here the idea with knight e2 is to be able to take on c3 with a knight instead of getting the double pawns. So I'll play a3. He plays the Sicilian, and we're just gonna improvise. Don't know much theory there, so okay, it seems to me that I just play queen a4 and take on c4 and have the better structure. I'll do that. Knight c3 is also an option, but let's see, knight c3. I just don't want to spend too much time on this game, to be honest, so let's just go here. And okay, I'm gonna go knight c3 here. We're gonna start one more game. He goes back, and finally on black. d4, knight f6. And here, I think the idea is usually, well, we can either go knight c3 or g3. I think I'm just gonna play knight g3. Here I'm gonna play either the king's Indian or the Grunwald. Here I can take with the bishop on c4, getting a tempo on the queen. He's probably going to have to lose another move there at some point. Bishop g7, I'll play the king's Indian. Knight f6, I just wanted to see if he went out of the system. Now I'll just transpose into the open Sicilian. Knight f3, castles. Mainland stuff. I'm going to take on d4 here in the Sicilian. Bishop b2, Well, we can play. We're just gonna play e5, play the main line, and he plays this Sveshnikov. Okay, let's just go for it. I'm not. Plays d5, Petrosyan. I think I like a5 here. The idea is to get a6 right away. Isn't that? It's playable, but not get this move. d6. I think I had a tactic back there. Okay, I can take on c5 and play b4 with tempo. I kind of like that, putting my bishop on the long diagonal. Here I can take on f7 and knight e5 check, picking out the piece. We would need to check out if there's something after that. Knight e5, king e8, knight takes g4, something like queen to here. Well, there probably is, but can you get away with such a move, really? G6, h3, h5. Okay, his structure is all over the place, so at least let him see this line. So before we worry about it. Is this some kind of trick? Usually the theory here is queen e7. So he's played theory up to here, but now I'm wondering if I just take this pawn on e5. Seems to me I should be able to not have any problems on the e file. I mean, I take on e5, he castles, bishop somewhere, rook e8. Maybe at this long castle. I'm just going to take the pawn. He's just going to have to show me. Here, it's possible to take on d5 and give him a... I'm going to give him a nice let the pawn, see how he deals with it. Okay, king takes, knight e5 check, picking up the bishop. He castles. Here, a move like bishop g5 comes into consideration. Bishop d2. I'm just going to play it safe. Bishop, well, why not bishop g5? Why not bishop g5? King e6 looks like a horrible move. I'll just take here. And there are no tactics. Okay, knight g6, okay. And now just queen d4. Seems like I keep control. I mean, his pawn structure is not good enough to deal with this. I'll put the knight back on e5. It looked like a good square. Now we have bishop a3 with tempo, something like that. Yeah, why not? One more game. 5 is a bit much, but... Okay, he takes with a pawn. Bishop b2. And then get castled real quick. I think just bishop a3 here, attack the queen. Knight g4, I think, is some kind of theory here. We'll go with knight a6. Okay, h6, I can just give him a bad pawn structure here. It's also possible just to keep the knight, but I'm just gonna give him a bad pawn structure. I can play more like e4. Here, well, I'm up a pawn, so it's just sensible to get castled. There's nothing attacked, he has a horrible king. Here I'll exchange queens, I'm up a pawn. b6. I think just bishop e2, get my pieces out. He's not threatening d4, and I'll put the bishop on f3. h5, nothing to worry about. Maybe just even e4, which I probably had earlier, followed by check with the queen. Get my king castled, don't see anything. And here, I kind of like, well, plenty of options. I think I like knight g4. Okay, bishop f3 looks normal here. And queen c4, because if knight d5, it's pinned there. He wants to put the knight on g4, so I'll just stop that, and then I can play something like f4. Also have the option of just knight d5, but I can do that later. This looks like it should be checkmate in a few moves. Queen f7. Well, at least I'll pick up the knight there. Knight d5 looks fine, attacking this f6 pawn. Should I look for mate here, or... Looks like it should be mate in a few. Bishop c1 maybe? I can just play queen f5 and take on f4 and it's completely winning. But yeah, it looks to me like he has to sacrifice the queen if I go here. So we'll just go with that. He's going to give me this pawn on f6. And let's just take it. Bishop goes back to d2. Okay, that means I get my knight to c5. And I have some options here. I can take on d7, he gets this pawn, but I'm up 2 pawns, so I'm not worried about that. Here I'm going to play probably something closer to my repertoire. Okay, he takes, I take, and when he takes there, probably f3. So I can get my bishop out next. Just get my bishop out and simplify the position. Up 2 pawns. Should be easy. Knight f3, e6, hoping for the Benoni. But he goes for this. Okay, here I usually just take and go a6. I'm just gonna take. He has to take with the king. In this position, I think I don't want knight e5 taking my bishop, so I'm gonna play knight b5 or knight e2. Just to put a knight on d4 and also to take away this e5 square from his knight. Also have some knight f5 options later. So let's just, can I take on, oh hang on a minute, I can take on d5. Knight takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5. Yeah, I don't have to worry about anything. He doesn't have good enough development to punish this, so this looks safe. And here we'll just get castled. Play sort of a hedgehog, and we'll simplify further here. Queen c7 and then castle, seems fine. And yeah, this is just too many pawns. Queen b3, bit of a weird move. Usually, don't have to worry about this pawn. Go for a castle, and just bring my king here. Stop him from getting anything away from me there. I think I'm gonna go knight c6. Gives me a check. I just go here, and I can safely. Or king f1. Okay, here I'll take. He takes. I thought he would do that, but it's also a bit strange. But okay, I will take towards the center, and here I will protect my pawn. Knight g5. Okay, the problem here, I just go back, and now I'm threatening h6, winning the e4 pawn. The only problem with this simul setup is that as soon as I make a move, we go away from the position, so you could miss what I'm talking about. I think I like taking. It's also possible just to play c5 eventually, start something like rook b8. I'll just take, I don't know. D5 also is an option, but somehow like it more like this. I want to play C5 and D6. This I can just take. If queen takes, I castle. If knight takes, I swap queens and I'm a pawn up in an endgame. This looks like too little too late. And this seems a bit weird, giving up some squares, and also if I just play h6, this pawn is falling. So I'm gonna take first. And here we have a pin, so I'm just gonna play a4 and I win b5. Queen comes back to c2. I think I like c5 here. Bishop f4, d6, rook d1, I'm going to take on e4. Yeah, I think it's a good take here. Simply take this pawn. He's a bit too late to bring his king here. I can play even king f2, threatening mate with g3. Bishop d2. Now I think bishop b7. If he takes, I take. We'll have some exchanges, but I'm hoping he eventually goes for b3, then I have a simple plan of a minority attack. Okay, just a simple move, having things protected. We don't need a castle here because we have an endgame, so king e2 looks fine to me. Rook f4, okay. Something fancy like knight d5, don't think so. h6. Or just put the knight back, and maybe g5. I think this is bad for him. a5, a4, can I play that? a5, you take, no. But I can take everything and play rook b3. I kind of like that. It puts some pressure on his position. Actually, I'm going to play bishop f6 first. Okay, he wants check here. So I'll play rook here. Maybe bishop f6 first. Stop bishop c3. And then d6, rook b3. But he can stop it. Okay, I'm gonna play rook here. If he gives me a check on f4, I'll just go king here, knight d3. Well, maybe that's not. I don't need to allow that. So what? Rook d1, knight f4. King f1 is possible, knight d3. And simply rook c3. The knight has to retreat. Ooh, we can exchange, it seems to me. So, looks safe. This e4 pawn looks very weak. Also, the rook is not well placed. Possibly I can play g5 and just win it. Yeah, it seems to me that he doesn't have a square. Okay, that's probably a good idea. Probably a good idea. b5 takes. Okay, I don't know. I'll start with this. Which piece to take with? I'll take with the queen. Here he plays rook d7. But now I can play rook d4. I'll protect this. But it does have knight c3. Okay. Knight c3, rook takes e3, rook takes there. So, but I can also just play king at d3 there. Looks a bit risky though. So, something else. Rook here. Okay, my king is, it's bothering me a bit, so. Maybe just retreat with it. Go start with this. Okay, bishop there. Doesn't want bishop d4. Might be getting into time trouble soon. Can I take? It can't be. Queen e7. Probably will take. What did it go? Rook c1. Looks a bit dodgy. Looks better for white. We'll play this. Doubles the rooks. But I can play this now. Even e4. Just play here. Don't see a problem with it. Should be my move somewhere. Oh, he resigned here, didn't he? Okay. And this game, he resigned also. Okay, excellent. Queen c2. Kind of want to take with the b pawn if he takes, so let's do this. 7 minutes left in this game. 11 minutes here. 7 here. Let's protect the light squares. I mean, he's gonna get some moves in, but I'm gonna take if he comes to c6. I'm not sure if I take if he comes to b5. Yeah, I'll probably do that. So he wants to put something on f5. But I want to attack this e-pawn. So the biggest trouble seems to be in this game. I think I'm slightly worse here. Not by much, but I think I misplayed it a little bit. g6. What if I just double now, threatening e4? Want to simplify the position. He goes knight d3. Can I go f5? If knight takes f5, bishop takes f5. Does bishop takes c5, but it opens things up. Knight takes f5, bishop takes c5. Yeah, he's gonna have to open things up. So I think this might be close to decisive. f3. Okay. It does surprise me a little bit, but it's probably, yeah, it surprises me. Okay, that looks like a good move. Now I'm going to play knight c3 or knight f4. Rook c6, I want to put pressure on this pawn, and if he has to play c5, then he might run into some problems. So I'll just double here. Knight f4, and he has to exchange. Okay, first of all, can I play d5? Probably not yet. I'll start with this move. Why? Because I just think if he plays e3, it just limits his options. I'll go back to e5. But it also gives him his king a square to go to d3, which is a useful square probably. But either way, okay. Pros and cons. If e3, this bishop has less scope. What's going on? f5, he resigned, okay? King g2. If d5, he takes once and goes c5. I go a5, he goes e3. Okay. So on the other hand, he might be in a bit of a zugzwang. So maybe see what happens. I'll just bring the king. See what he wants to do. Here I don't see anything against just going for the ending. King f3. I want the king on the light square for some reason. I'll take here also and bring the king. Okay. Somehow it feels like this gives me option of perhaps going d5 at some point. Start with this, and probably want to bring the king. Another option is some restriction. Knight d3. If I bring the king, he comes here, here, here. I'm gonna restrict this knight. I don't want him going to e5. It has some active options there to go to c4 and g4. So let's start with this move. Then my plan is to bring the king. I will be able to make a pass pawn on the central files, but will it be enough? It's not clear. Let's first see if he wants to draw. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, bring the king. Probably wants to draw. I'm not so sure I'm any better here. Not sure I'm even better, so probably gonna take the draw. Bishop here and here doesn't really do anything. Bishop there. Okay, let's play around a little bit. This is actually not so clear. Knight b2 here, f3. Okay, king c3, king e4. Is that something to worry about? I want to go restrict his king. Then play f3. f95. Okay, I think I'm gonna always, if it goes knight e5, f3, knight c4, I will always get the opposition, I think. So what if I go here now? You see what you want to do. Just gonna bring the king for lack of a better alternative. King b7. Okay, I restrict this knight, and now I'm ready to play king d3. Or c3, I'm not sure. Okay, king, I'm just gonna see what it does. b5. This seems to lose. Amazing. I'll just take it. If it takes, I'll take the rooks and go king b6. So right there for you. The end game is usually where you're gonna make your money. Here I'm just gonna go knight d1 to c3 and improve my knight, kick his king. So I'm just gonna be up a pawn here. I was about to give up and offer a draw there. Okay, king to there. What are my options? Bishop f6. Yeah, I'm just gonna go there. If e5, I'll just come back and then king c6. And he's got so many pawns on black squares. Maybe even bishop c5. Okay, start with this. Check. And maybe I come up to king here, f4. I think I'll do it because he doesn't have a knight check. I can follow up with e4 immediately here. Maybe king d4 first, knight there, e4, knight c6, then come back. Yeah, e4 takes, knight takes king here. Maybe I just make a move then, g3 or something. Yeah, I like it. Just see what it does. h5. Okay, let's just bring the king. I'm not worried there. Knight c4, yeah, that's an option I didn't consider. But I'm gonna go here on king d4. Okay, he goes there. We've got plenty of time actually, no need to worry. What about f5 now? If he takes, pawn takes. And my pieces get into motion a bit, I think. Okay, king d4, knight c4, then I go a4, right? If he takes, then I take the knight, so king d4. Okay, a4. I think it's time to come back now to this square and go king d5 next. Or is it? If it goes e4. Gonna go here. He goes knight b2. Now I can take or go a5. Which one to choose? Good question. I think I'm gonna go here because then immediately my knight is attacking his weakness. Maybe king here, takes. Get my king active. He won't get a passed pawn, so don't need to worry about it. He took back. And it's a bit extravagant, but can I take here? Knight takes, king d5. No, knight d3. This is okay. Let's start with a move like this one. Doesn't have an easy way to penetrate. I'll take back here. And g4. Okay, he's following a good principle. He wants to exchange all the pawns. But don't I just take and go king e4 followed by winning this pawn? Okay, I need to calculate now. I take, king takes, king e4. He's probably going to go h6, g6, king g5. He wants to penetrate. But I go bishop c3. And I stop everything. Because king f6, I take king here, my bishop will stop his stuff. So, knight there. Okay, I'm going to move in the other game. King e4, yeah. Okay. Maybe just e6. What can he do? If he moves the king, I take, and his knight is in trouble. If he moves the knight, then king e5. And the pawn looks really strong, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it! King will be really strong on e5. Okay, knight b2, king e5, knight d3, king f6, knight takes b4. I mean, he just can't stop the pawn. Knight d2. Does he want knight f3? I also have the option of taking on b5. King takes e7, can't stop the pawn. Knight takes b5, knight f3, king e3. Knight takes h2. But probably it's better just to bring the king. King e5, knight f3, king f6. If he takes on h2, he can never stop the pawn, so let's go for that. He went what? Bishop c1. But I'm just gonna go this way and taking the pawn. If I took with the king, he had bishop check and take on g7. So I'm just gonna do this. And it looks like I have enough to win here. g6. And then bishop takes e5, stops his king from penetration to this h7 pawn. And he resigns. And this is just equal to resigning. I can take it, and first of all I'm a pawn up in the endgame, even if he wins this pawn. And second of all, I can just protect it here with f5. And that seems to be decisive. Looks fairly decisive to me. So that's the last game. Maybe we have a quick look. Let's see, where the mistakes lie. Quite happy to win all the games, because I was not doing well in one of them, and well, I thought it was worse, but not losing, but just slightly worse. g5, just g4, 2 pawns up, protected and passed, nothing to worry about. He resigns. Okay. He's taking me for the game. Okay. Let's see. Should I tell the others? Let the chat. Yeah, pawn cost the game. Okay. Enough chat. Let's look at the games. So we'll close all the game tabs and go to the archive. Okay. First game here. I'll bring it up. House White versus, I'm not going to pronounce that, XRAKX111. He played the Queen's Gambit, accepted. Bishop g4. If he's following theory, then usually Black plays something like knight f6, e6, bishop e7, castle. And I think knight, no, e6, knight, bishop d6, I'm very sorry. And the plan is to organize an e5 break later in the game, after he gets castled. But as he played it b5, and this, I don't know the theory here, but usually hanging on to this pawn is a bit risky. I'm not sure I chose the most correct path. I went b3. A4 seems an option also. I went b3. My idea was to take on b5 And even if you can keep a pawn up here with something like this, I mean, he's way behind in development, and it just seems like I should have some tactics. Maybe even knight e5 here, just because he can't take the queen, then checkmate. But what if he just defends like this? And maybe queen b3, e6. Well, either way, you know, he can't take here because bishop takes f7. I mean, either way, it's gonna be just fine. Maybe I can even play. No, it's protected. Okay, I don't have queen b7. But even though I'm down a pawn, I think I'm just close to a big advantage here. His pieces are, he has no development, and his pieces look a bit clumsy. But I mean, this was just one idea. Rook takes a2 is another idea. Bishop takes f7 I don't think works because you can take on b1, so I would have to sack a piece. But it just looks bad for black. No development. He played queen d5. Here I had many options. Knight c3. But you know, it's a simul, so I like to keep it simple. Just queen a4 check, and I win the pawn back. And much more than that. I'm leading in development. Right at the castle, I have threats on f7, and he fell for that immediately. And I took a slight chance here because, okay, this is probably the best move. But if he goes here, maybe he has something like this. On the other hand, I think I must be better here still. Yeah. Give him up a pawn, so if he wants to regain the pawn, he has to play something like probably h5, knight h6. Looks silly. So let's say h5. Then he's compromising his pawn structure a bit more. This just looks really risky. I mean, if he takes the pawn, then maybe just here, threatening this check, also threatening to come here, pick up the rook. You know, it's just very dangerous to leave your king, and take a look. All the pieces are undeveloped. So just chess principles tell you that this will be punished. That's what I'm guessing would have happened. Instead he went king e6, and now it's just, I mean, I'm pawn up, better developed. He's got king in the middle of the board, and I develop a piece with tempo. I even had a e4 move earlier, and yeah, now everything falls apart. I can win the piece, but I thought this bishop c1 was sufficient, and probably it was. Okay. Next game was against Eduard T, and I decided to go for e4. And if you want to play the Sveshnikov, you played d6 first, I think, and then a6. But this is still playable. Can't remember, it's called the Pelican or something. You go queen e7 here. But I didn't do that. He went knight e7, which was weird because he just dropped his pawn, which was protected by the knight. And with all these holes, I just felt, I mean, he shouldn't have enough development to punish my, to get a rook on the e file, and punish my queen for being on this file with the king. I mean, I just didn't believe the tactics. I'm just ready to play bishop somewhere in castle queenside. I should have enough development. And here he exchanged queens. I'm already a pawn up, and just look at this. This is a good pawn structure. We have two pawn islands. The pawns are connected and work together. Black, on the other hand, 1, 2, 3, 4 pawn islands. So the pawns are really isolated, really weak. So, and we add to that he still has to finish the development of this bishop. Meanwhile, white can castle and play knight d5 with various threats. So I castled knight e5. And, well, maybe bishop e2 is a better move. Just develop and stop bishop g4, but I played h3. A bit unnecessary probably. And now knight d5, attacking this pawn. And he missed it and lost some further pawns, and from there it was just, I mean, I'm 2 pawns up. Just exchange, go to the ending, and that's what happened. Next game, PDVE. And here was black, so let's flip board. We played, okay, mainland theory, King's Indian. Black gives up the center, but hopes to attack it later. Bishop e2, and here start attacking with e5. White can take on e5, which is the exchange variation, but he's not winning a pawn. I'm not going to explain it, you can just look it up in the theoretical manuals or use your computer. Black has some tactics with knight takes e4 where he wins the pawn back. So this is all theory, and a5 is with the idea to get knight to c5 when the pawn prevents b4, and therefore securing the knight on this b5 square. Bishop e3, knight a6. I'm not sure about the theory at this point, but knight g4 has the idea to kick this bishop away to get the knight to c5. He went bishop d2, and now knight c5. And now knight g5 felt weird to me. I'm just going to retreat, and I'm going to recover tempo here with h6, and this will be attacked. And just seems harmonious for black. f4. Usually you don't want to make this move if black can get control of this e5 square. I think you saw that. I think it was another video. Oh, either way. Black is going to get control over this e5 square. And, you know, open diagonal for this bishop. So easy play for the pieces. And as it turned out in this game, h6, I'm just going to win the exchange right away. This rook has no squares, stands badly. He took here, and being up the exchange, I did nothing here but finish development. And then I had this move f5. When we have problems here with the bishop, I thought something like this was a likely line. You could take here, I take back, and he's going to end up having to take. Well, actually, this might not be so bad for him, and I probably had something better, but I just thought I would be able to penetrate, but maybe it's not so bad, and I shouldn't give him too many pieces on the light square. So maybe this resignation was slightly premature, but I'm still better here. Bishop takes f5 is forced, bishop takes c5. I can also just retreat the bishop with a fine position. Okay, the second to last game was this one. Was black here. Yeah, and I tried to play the Benoni, but he didn't play d5, so therefore I was trying to set up this hedgehog structure, so-called, defined by these pawns. Of course, I'm going to take care of this diagonal before I play b6. He played queen b3, which might be fine, but feels a bit weird. Maybe it's better for me to go d6, knight d7, knight c5, trying to take advantage of this queen. But it's, I mean, it might be just fine for white. Okay, here I was hoping for some kind of a structure where he plays b3. Then black has an easy plan of just exchanging pieces and playing for a minority attack with a5, a4. And he can either take, when I just go with all my pieces on the a file, attack the pawn, or I take on b3, he takes back, and he will be left with a pawn on b3, and I can double the rooks, even triple my material, and press this pawn. Easy plan, might not be anything special, but if you can have an easy plan, that's what you want. Okay, I took on e4. Maybe I should play rook b3 here. Problem is, I thought he would play bishop c3 when my pressure is more or less neutralized and this bishop becomes perhaps dangerous. So I decided to play bishop f6 first, but then he played b4, and here I realized that I'm not going to get any attack on his pawns, and he actually might be slightly better. But this f3 move unnecessarily weakens the structure. So now he has 3 pawn islands versus my 2. This is slightly weak, but if he attacks it, then he has to abandon some pieces here, and my bishop also stands nicely here. So okay, I just doubled, he doubled, and I didn't really have a plan here. I was just feeling him out here to begin with. And okay, I thought I'd improve my king. I brought it to the queen side. And as so often happens, you're going to be able to pick up points in the endgame against opponents that are lower rated than yourself. And here he just felt like he wanted to simplify. He went b5, and this just loses a pawn. I just take on c2 and this pawn. So from here I'm simply a pawn up, and I think it should be a matter of technique to win from here, and I managed to do that. The last game, yeah, I tried out, I usually don't play the nimzo, so I'm just trying out some new stuff here. Played a3, the idea is to take on c3 with a knight if he takes, but he went back. And I think this is, yeah, how we play it. g3 in some lines is also playable. Maybe even c5 in some lines. I have to check the theory, I don't know it at all. c5, it felt to me that I could take and play b4 with tempo and develop this bishop on the long diagonal. And also I can give him a back, an isolated queen pawn here. So I took on d5. He took back, bishop e2. And usually when you have the isolated pawn, you want to have a lead in development and some initiative. But here he gave me a tempo with b4, and he seems a bit behind normal pawn, isolated queen pawn positions, and it just seems like I should be able to control d4 and attack this pawn. And that means that the isolated queen pawn is going to be a weakness, and here he just blundered the pawn right away. And when you're up a pawn, it's fine to look for exchanges, go for the endgame, and that's what I did. Eventually finding a way to double on the d-file and forcing him to change a pair of rooks. And from there it should be a matter of technique, like I said, but this was slightly more difficult than the other game. But eventually I found a way to bring my king forward and get the protected passed pawn. He probably should have taken, you know, that would have made my job slightly more difficult if he had taken on e4. But I'm always going to be able to make a pass pawn here. a4, useful weakening, g3, knight c4, and e6. Yeah, king e5 seemed like the most principled move here. It's also possible to take, but it might not be the best. If he takes, then e7 runs. Now he's going to get this pawn. And yeah, it's just unnecessary. Yeah, it's totally unnecessary, because now the knight gets into back into the game, and I might run the risk of losing some pawns. So what I did was best king e5. Use your king to assist with the pawn. And this was just too much. I get f5 in, secure the pawn, and pawn's gonna queen no matter what. So yeah, this was a bit of an experiment. Please tell me how you liked it, and if you did, then we'll try more of these. Hope you enjoyed. See you later. Bye bye.